Serial killers are infamous for their twisted minds and chilling acts.
What do you say about him?
That sounds like someone who's on drugs or something. The person sounded...
But once they're placed on film in front of interviewers, even trying to justify their actions seems like watching a horror movie. Let's look into the most disturbing serial killer interviews ever recorded.
On the surface, Brian Stephen Smith was a quiet, unassuming man.
In 2023, investigative journalist David Scott sat down for an interview that would unearth the dark and twisted psyche of Brian Stephen Smith, a man who had led a duplicitous existence as a serial killer. Smith, a 53-year-old immigrant from South Africa, had been residing in Anchorage, Alaska for several years. To those around him, he was perceived as a quiet, unassuming individual, blending seamlessly into the fabric of the community. However, beneath this veneer of normalcy lurked a predator whose heinous actions would send shockwaves through the nation. The facade that Smith had meticulously constructed began to crumble in September 2019. A woman, while walking along a street in Anchorage, stumbled upon a discarded memory card labeled "Homicide at Midtown Marriott." Curiosity led her to examine its contents, revealing a trove of disturbing videos and images. The footage depicted the brutal torture and murder of a woman, who was later identified as 30-year-old Kathleen Jo Henry. The evidence was both graphic and damning, capturing the perpetrator's voice and face, which were soon matched to Smith. Smith was promptly arrested, and during intense interrogations, he confessed to multiple murders, including that of 52-year-old Veronica Abuchuk. His modus operandi involved frequenting local bars and clubs, where he would seek out vulnerable women, often those battling addiction or homelessness. He would befriend them, offering rides or assistance, only to lure them to secluded areas where he would unleash his violent fantasies.
We have some matters we wanted to clear up with you and talk to you today, so I appreciate you coming up here with these guys and talking to me.
During the 2023 interview with David Scott, Smith recounted his actions with a chilling detachment that left viewers and listeners unnerved. He spoke in a calm, almost monotonous tone, detailing how he selected his victims based on their perceived vulnerability. They were easy targets, he stated plainly, his lack of remorse evident. He described the methods he employed to gain their trust, often presenting himself as a good Samaritan, only to betray them in the most horrific ways imaginable. When Scott probed deeper into Smith's psyche, attempting to uncover the motivations behind his monstrous behavior, Smith's responses were evasive and cryptic. He alluded to an insatiable urge, a compulsion that he felt powerless to resist. It was like a hunger, he explained, something that needed to be fed. Despite this admission, he offered no concrete explanation for why he chose to act on these impulses, leaving a void where understanding might have been. One of the most unsettling aspects of the interview was Smith's description of the moments leading up to his arrest. He recounted a sense of inevitability, as if he knew his capture was imminent. "I had a feeling it was coming to an end," he said, almost wistfully. When asked if he felt relief upon being apprehended, he nodded. In a way, yes. The hiding, the pretending, it was exhausting. This acknowledgement of the dual lives he led, the outwardly normal individual and the clandestine killer, highlighted the psychological toll of maintaining such a facade. The impact of Smith's crimes on the Anchorage community was profound. Residents who had once felt secure in their city were now gripped by fear and mistrust. The revelation that a serial killer had been living among them, undetected for years, shattered the sense of safety that many had taken for granted. Community leaders and law enforcement officials faced intense scrutiny, with citizens demanding to know how such atrocities could have occurred unnoticed.
Paraphilia, characterized by abnormal desires typically involving extreme or dangerous activity.
In July 2024, Smith was brought before the court for sentencing. The proceedings were marked by emotional testimonies from the families of his victims, their grief palpable as they recounted the devastating impact of their losses. Smith remained impassive throughout, his demeanor unchanged, even as he was sentenced to 226 years in prison without the possibility of parole. The judge, in delivering the sentence, remarked on the sheer brutality of Smith's actions, stating that he represented a significant threat to public safety and that the lengthy sentence was necessary to ensure he would never harm another soul. The case of Bryan Steven Smith serves as a grim reminder of the potential for evil that can reside within individuals who, on the surface, appear benign. It underscores the importance of vigilance and the need for communities to look beyond outward appearances. The Anchorage Police Department faced criticism for not identifying the pattern of disappearances sooner, leading to calls for improved investigative procedures and better support systems for vulnerable populations. In the aftermath of Smith's conviction, several initiatives were launched aimed at protecting potential victims and preventing similar tragedies. Community outreach programs were established to provide resources and support for individuals struggling with homelessness and addiction, demographics that Smith had often targeted. Additionally, law enforcement agencies received training to better recognize and investigate patterns that might indicate the presence of a serial offender. For those seeking a deeper understanding of the case and the mind of Bryan Steven Smith, the interview conducted by David Scott remains a pivotal resource. It offers a rare glimpse into the psyche of a serial killer, providing insights that are both disturbing and enlightening. The interview stands as a testament to the importance of investigative journalism in uncovering truths that might otherwise remain hidden, and it serves as a sobering reflection on the darkness that can dwell within the human soul. This next case is nothing short of a thrill.
40 is an estimate. I gave a number between 30 and 40. I think I have identified.
Charles Cullen, born on February 22, 1960, in West Orange, New Jersey, emerged as one of America's most notorious serial killers. Over a 16-year nursing career, he confessed to ending the lives of numerous patients across various medical facilities in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. While he admitted to at least 40 murders, some estimates suggest the actual number could be much higher. Cullen's early life was fraught with challenges. As the youngest of 8 children in a working-class Catholic family, he faced significant hardships, including the loss of his father shortly after his birth. He described his childhood as miserable, marked by bullying and multiple suicide attempts. Despite these struggles, Cullen pursued a career in nursing, graduating from the Mountainside Hospital School of Nursing in 1986. His nursing career began at St. Barnabas Medical Center in Livingston, New Jersey, where he committed his first known murder in 1988 by administering a lethal overdose to a patient. This act set off a series of deaths that would continue for over a decade. Cullen's method typically involved administering overdoses of medications like digoxin, insulin, and epinephrine, exploiting his position to access these drugs without raising immediate suspicion. Throughout his career, Cullen worked at multiple hospitals, including Warren Hospital in Phillipsburg, New Jersey, and Liberty Nursing and Rehabilitation Center in Allentown, Pennsylvania. At each facility, unexplained patient deaths followed his tenure. Despite red flags and internal investigations, Cullen often evaded detection, partly due to a lack of comprehensive reporting mechanisms and a national nursing shortage that made hospitals hesitant to scrutinize staff closely.
For a hospital to ask too much or say too much became a liability. You can't penalize a nurse for seeking counseling.
Cullen's personal life was equally tumultuous. He married Adrienne Baum in 1987, with whom he had 2 daughters, but the marriage ended in divorce in 1993. His mental health deteriorated over the years, leading to multiple suicide attempts and periods of psychiatric treatment. Despite these issues, he continued to find employment in the healthcare sector, where he perpetuated his crimes. The turning point came during his employment at Somerset Medical Center in Somerville, New Jersey. In 2003, the hospital began noticing discrepancies, such as unauthorized access to medication and patients' records. A critical moment was the involvement of nurse Amy Loughran, a colleague who became suspicious of Cullen's activities. Working with law enforcement, Loughran helped gather evidence that ultimately led to Cullen's arrest on December 15, 2003. In subsequent interviews and legal proceedings, Cullen confessed to numerous murders, expressing a misguided belief that he was alleviating patients' suffering. However, many of his victims were not terminally ill, and his actions brought immense grief to countless families. In 2006, Cullen was sentenced to 18 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. ensuring he would spend the rest of his life in prison. The case of Charles Cullen had a profound impact on the medical community, leading to increased scrutiny of healthcare professionals and the implementation of more robust monitoring systems to prevent such tragedies in the future. His story serves as a chilling reminder of the potential for abuse of trust within caregiving professions and underscores the importance of vigilance and accountability in healthcare settings. If you think his calmness sends chills down your spine, wait till you hear about Arthur Shawcross.
After I admitted to the 11, it was like a big weight fell off me.
Arthur Shawcross, infamously known as the Genesee River Killer, gave chilling interviews in 2008 offering a haunting glimpse into his psyche and the brutality of his crimes. His demeanor throughout these interviews, which were conducted while he was serving a life sentence, was cold, detached, and completely devoid of remorse. Shawcross, responsible for the deaths of at least 11 women in Rochester, New York, between 1988 and 1989, explained his violent actions with an unsettling calmness. His disturbing confessions reveal a man who not only lacked empathy, but rationalized his monstrous behavior. Born in Kittery, Maine on June 6, 1945, Shawcross's early years were far from ordinary. He was the oldest of 3 children in a dysfunctional family. His mother, distant and unloving, contributed to a childhood marred by emotional neglect. His father, an alcoholic, often subjected the family to violent outbursts. This lack of a stable and nurturing environment had a lasting impact on Shawcross, shaping his troubled development. From an early age, Shawcross exhibited troubling behaviors. He wet the bed well into his teenage years, a condition commonly linked to future violent tendencies. He was also socially awkward, with a speech impediment that further alienated him from his peers. These early experiences of rejection, humiliation, and neglect were key factors in the formation of Shawcross's violent personality. Despite his struggles, Shawcross managed to finish high school, though his emotional and psychological scars ran deep. After high school, Shawcross enlisted in the U.S. Army and served in Vietnam, where his exposure to the horrors of war only deepened his emotional instability. Shawcross himself later claimed that his time in Vietnam was a turning point, but the truth of whether it triggered his violent tendencies remains uncertain. His return to civilian life saw him struggling with anger and frustration, ultimately leading to his first known murders. In 1972, Shawcross was convicted of the brutal murders of 2 young children in Watertown, New York. His first victims, 10-year-old Jack Blake and 11-year-old Lori Drove, were lured into the woods where Shawcross murdered them in cold blood. He strangled and assaulted them, then disposed of their bodies, displaying an eerie sense of control and calmness. Shawcross's actions were chillingly calculated, and he showed no remorse for his heinous crimes. Shawcross was sentenced to 25 years in prison for the murders, but served only 15 years before being released on parole. His early release in 1987 marked the beginning of his deadly reign in Rochester. Despite the horrific nature of his crimes, Shawcross was granted a second chance, one that he would squander in the most terrifying way imaginable. After his release, Shawcross moved to Rochester, where he quickly resumed his violent tendencies. Between 1988 and 1989, he went on a killing spree that left the city in a state of fear and unease. Shawcross targeted mostly sex workers, preying on their vulnerability and using their trust to lure them into his grasp. Once in his power, he strangled, raped, and mutilated his victims before discarding their bodies near the Genesee River, where they were often left in a state of decomposition for days. His methodical approach to the murders earned him the nickname Genesee River Killer.
Shawcross returned to the bridge to make sure that the body was far enough under the bridge so we couldn't observe it.
Shawcross's killing spree lasted over a year, and the police had no idea who the killer was until they finally apprehended him in January 1990. He was arrested after being spotted near one of the crime scenes, and his arrest marked the end of a terrifying chapter in Rochester's history. Shawcross, who had been on the police's radar for some time, was quickly linked to the murders. Once arrested, Shawcross's behavior during his interrogation was chilling. He confessed to the murders in great detail, offering graphic descriptions of the crimes. However, his demeanor was utterly disarming. Shawcross spoke calmly, almost as if he were discussing something as trivial as a walk in the park. There was no sign of guilt or remorse as he recounted the horrific acts he had committed. His tone was steady, and his expressions remained emotionless, as if the lives he had taken were insignificant to him. In the 2008 interview, Shawcross revealed that his motivation for the murders was tied to his sexual fantasies. He stated that he needed to kill in order to satisfy his desires, showing a complete lack of empathy for his victims. The interview was deeply unsettling, as Shawcross spoke openly about his crimes without any visible signs of regret or sorrow. His coldness and the ease with which he described the murders underscored the chilling nature of his personality. Psychologists have studied Shawcross extensively, seeking to understand the factors that contributed to his violent tendencies. Many attribute his behavior to a combination of his abusive childhood and his time in Vietnam, but Shawcross himself downplayed these factors. Instead, he often claimed that his murders were a result of his urges. He frequently discussed his need for control over women, viewing them as mere objects for his gratification. This lack of empathy and the ability to detach himself from the suffering of his victims was a key aspect of his psychopathy.
I didn't have medical records when my mother was abusing me.
His lack of remorse, coupled with his chilling rationalization of his actions, painted a clear picture of his psychopathic tendencies. Shawcross's ability to compartmentalize his crimes and view them as insignificant compared to his own desires revealed a mind that was not only disturbed, but completely incapable of understanding the moral consequences of his actions. His interviews made it clear that Shawcross did not see himself as a monster, but rather as a man who was simply fulfilling his needs. Shawcross was convicted of the murders and sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. He spent the rest of his life behind bars, where he continued to talk about his crimes with unsettling frequency. His interviews, particularly those conducted in 2008, serve as a chilling reminder of the darkness that can reside within a seemingly ordinary individual. Shawcross died on November 10th, 2008 at the age of 63, still incarcerated at the Sullivan Correctional Facility in New York. Despite his death, Shawcross's legacy as one of America's most notorious serial killers endures. His case remains a grim example of how a combination of factors such as a troubled upbringing, emotional neglect, and exposure to violence can shape an individual into a murderer. Shawcross's interviews continue to haunt those who study criminal psychology, as they offer a rare and disturbing window into the mind of a man who showed no remorse for the lives he destroyed. Arthur Shawcross's story is a chilling one, filled with horror, depravity, and a complete lack of empathy. His interviews, conducted in 2008, offer a terrifying look into the mind of a man who viewed his victims as little more than objects to satisfy his violent urges. Shawcross's cold, detached demeanor and his rationalization of his crimes serve as a haunting reminder of the capacity for evil that can lie within some individuals. His legacy as the Genesee River Killer continues to shape discussions around criminal psychology and serves as a stark warning about the potential for violence lurking beneath the surface of seemingly ordinary people. Genesee River Killer was calm as a river, but this next case, you could see the interviewer shaking in his bones.
Those interviews, they're more difficult because all the memories come back.
The year 2023 saw the unveiling of a gripping and chilling tale when A&E released a two-part documentary titled Cold Case Files: The Rifkin Murders. This wasn't just any ordinary documentary. It opened a window into the dark, twisted mind of Joel Rifkin, one of New York's most infamous serial killers. The documentary grabbed attention from the first frame, offering an unprecedented deep dive into unsolved mysteries tied to Rifkin's horrific spree. Joel Rifkin, a name that haunted New Yorkers in the early 1990s, had confessed to killing 17 women. Despite his confessions, not all of his victims were identified. This left families searching for closure and investigators with unfinished business. The A&E team decided to tackle this haunting puzzle, focusing on the two women still unidentified decades after their tragic deaths. What made this documentary truly remarkable was the exclusive access it provided to both the investigators and Rifkin himself. The narrative began with retired New York State police officers revisiting dusty case files that had haunted them for years. Viewers were taken behind the scenes, witnessing the painstaking process of reopening cold cases. Old photographs, scribbled notes, and incomplete forensic reports were laid bare on tables, showing the immense challenge of connecting the dots in crimes that had faded from public memory. What really set this series apart was its rare interview with Joel Rifkin, the first in over a decade. The setting of the interview was stark, a grim reminder of the evil lurking behind his calm demeanor. Rifkin, now gray-haired and bearing the marks of age, sat across from the camera, speaking in a composed, almost detached manner about his horrific actions. His chilling voice and unflinching gaze pulled viewers into the abyss of his psyche. He recounted details of his crimes as if narrating mundane events, a stark reminder of the monster behind the mask of normalcy.
Number 9. Her body was found May of '92 in Brooklyn.
The documentary didn't just focus on Rifkin's confessions. It shone a spotlight on the victims, their lives, and the sorrow left in their wake. Archival footage and heartfelt interviews with the victims' families painted a picture of vibrant, beloved individuals whose lives were brutally cut short. The pain in their voices was palpable, bringing an emotional depth to the documentary that went beyond mere crime storytelling. A key element of the series was its use of modern forensic science to revisit old evidence. The advances in DNA technology became a beacon of hope in identifying the two unknown victims. Experts were seen working tirelessly in labs, carefully extracting and analyzing samples, searching for even the faintest trace of a lead. The contrast between the advanced tools of today and the rudimentary techniques of the 1990s underscored the progress in crime solving over the years. As the story unfolded, it became clear that the cold case detectives were not just solving crimes, they were seeking justice for those who had been forgotten. The documentary revealed how the process of identification wasn't just about science. It also involved sifting through missing persons reports, tracing family histories, and connecting with communities. Each new piece of evidence was celebrated, and every dead end was met with resilience. The interviews with Rifkin revealed an unsettling mix of intelligence and manipulation. He spoke about his methods and his motivations with a calm that was both terrifying and surreal. At times, he offered chilling details about his crimes, but there were moments when he seemed to toy with the interviewers, withholding information as if savoring the power he still held. His words painted a grim picture of a man who had no remorse, only a cold fascination with his own atrocities. The documentary also highlighted the toll these cases took on the investigators.
Oh, like 100 times. It's the same as quitting smoking. Yeah, I'll do that tomorrow.
Their interviews were raw, filled with reflections on sleepless nights and the burden of carrying the memories of these unsolved murders. For some, reopening the cases was a chance to right a wrong. For others, it was a painful reminder of the ones they couldn't save. Their humanity stood in stark contrast to Rifkin's cold indifference, creating a narrative tension that kept viewers riveted. One of the most heart-wrenching moments came when a victim's family member spoke about the years of uncertainty. The anguish of not knowing their loved one's fate had left scars that time couldn't heal. The hope that this documentary might finally bring answers was both uplifting and bittersweet. These stories of resilience and heartbreak added layers of emotion, making the documentary not just a tale of crime, but a testament to the enduring impact of loss. The production itself was polished with moody visuals and haunting music that set the tone. A&E's storytelling drew viewers into the labyrinth of investigations, making them feel like part of the journey. The interweaving of past and present created a sense of urgency, reminding everyone that time was running out to solve these cases. As the second episode reached its conclusion, there was a sense of both resolution and lingering questions. While the documentary didn't solve all the mysteries, it brought new attention to the victims and their families. ensuring they wouldn't be forgotten. The effort to identify the unknown victims continued, fueled by the renewed interest and support generated by the series Cold Case Files. The Rifkin murders wasn't just a documentary, it was a powerful reminder of the darkness that can exist in humanity in the relentless pursuit of justice. It left viewers with a mix of emotions: sorrow for the victims, admiration for the investigators, and a chilling awareness of the evil that once walked among us.